Thank you. I'm really humbled and honored to be here with you all. I first want to acknowledge my wife, Chloe, who's in Singapore. Without her, I would not be here today. I want to talk today about my probably favorite word, the word that I use most than any other word in my vocabulary. That is the word community. I want to talk about how I owe my career to community, but I really want to talk about how community is unavoidable. Before I do that, I'm going to show you my favorite tweet. I love Twitter. I know it's terrible, but this is my favorite tweet right here. There's a lot of wisdom in it. It says, I'm not self-made. I'm community-made. I'm family-made, I'm land-made, I'm ancestor-made. I'm made up of everything and everyone that has made me exist outside of just myself. I really want you to think about this. I'm going to take you back to the fall of 2016. I'm sitting at a computer in Bristol, Connecticut on the campus of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. I'm 2.5 years into my dream job. I'm working on shows like SportsCenter, NFL Live. I'm working on various college football shows, and I'm really struggling to believe that any of it means anything. Again, it's the fall of 2016. The country had just come out of one of its most contentious and probably the most partisan election of my lifetime. And the result was really leaving me with this feeling of emptiness. On top of that, I had already been questioning what I should be doing. That day, those memories was more than 6 years ago, but it's a memory that stays with me even now today. You see, the career that I tried to build has always been centered around community in some form or another. From my time as a radio host, from my time as a writer, working in television, community has always tried to be something I tried to center. My career actually started in a small town in Spartanburg, South Carolina, on the campus of a small school called the University of South Carolina Upstate. One of my best friends, Jim, he helped me land a job at an ESPN radio affiliate in the area, and this was really exciting to me. I'm this young black Latino kid originally from Brooklyn, New York, raised in the South, and now I'm arguing with college football fans on the radio, all while failing to sell radio time in a town where the Ku Klux Klan still ran around. Things were good, but I had no prospects of a job after college. I'd filled out a bunch of applications and had 0 bites, and it had gotten so bad, my mom was like, you can come home for a few months if you need to. But things changed relatively quickly. The fall of 2013, we're hosting the radio show at a local bar in the area. We used to keep this big sign that said ESPN Spartanburg. We're hosting this live show, and a listener named Alan comes up, and he says, ESPN Spartanburg, I'm from Connecticut. I'm like, that's awesome, please go away. Alan comes back a second time, and he says, I used to be neighbors with a certain ESPN commentator. Me, certain Alan is drunk. I'm like, that's awesome, please go away. Alan comes back a third time, and he says, I'd love to buy you a drink and talk sports after the show. And for me, as a broke college kid, free food and free beer, that was cool with me. So we sit down, have a drink, have some dinner, and Alan tells me how he's built this life as a mechanical contractor in Connecticut. Now he's living in San Diego. And he says, you seem like a decent kid. Why don't you give me your resume? I may know somebody who knows somebody, and I'd be willing to pass it along. I can't promise anything, but I'd be willing to do so. So I give him my resume, and that was on a Friday. Monday, I'm in my dorm, I'm still in my pajamas in bed. My phone rings, and I pick it up, and I hear a wonderful voice on the other side of the phone, and I hear this woman say, hi, my name is Susie. I work in global HR at ESPN. Are you looking for a job? Me? Absolutely. She says, well, I'm headed out of the country for a week. If you want to have this conversation when I get back. I said, hold on. If you want to tell me what job to look for, I'll fill out an application right now. So she tells me what to apply for, and over the next 2 months, I go through a lot of interviews and a flight up to Bristol, Connecticut, and a few days before I'm set to graduate from USC Upstate, I'm offered a job to go work at ESPN. I am not self-made. I've been very privileged and blessed and lucky, really, to live many lives since then. I've gotten to work for ESPN and CBS, and I've worked in radio. I got to work for the NBA, for the Los Angeles Clippers, and community has really been at the center along the way. Community was the real reason why I left my original career path. Community was the reason why I decided to pack up everything, leaving New York for a second time, packing up everything into my car, leaving New York to move to California alone. But it was community that showed me I wasn't alone. I had friends like Savannah and Ashley, Greg, my uncle David and his family, who all gave me a place to rest my head along the journey in the then biggest moment of my life. It was community that was waiting for me here in California. As one of my best friends, Teddy, his wife Crystal, and their 2 kids gave me a place to stay for over a year. It was community that turned friends into family because it was them, Crystal and Teddy, who became more than my friends. They became more than my pastors. They became my family. It was community that was shown to me through their children, who became my nephews. They showed me the importance of children and community, the importance of revisiting my own inner childhood, and the importance of having a childlike imagination in really imagining a better and more equitable space. It was community that was here for me in San Diego. When I arrived, in the toughest moment of my life, my cousin Jordan was here. He opened up his home, he opened up his heart, he supported me, he loved me, he was there for me in the toughest moment of my life and supported me through my time in grad school at the University of San Diego. At the University of San Diego, I met great people. Community showed itself. I met Dr. Amy Carpenter, who showed me the importance of peace building and peacemaking in the midst of my pain. It was community that was there in the women that I met, women like Nandita, Jasmine, Hannah, Madison, so many more, women from Black and brown spaces, women from queer spaces that showed me just how limited my gaze was on the idea of equity and showed me what real progress has to look like. That is community. And just a reminder, I am not self-made. Like I said, I've been very privileged and lucky and blessed along the way, but most importantly, I've been communally made. I am the prayers of my ancestors. I'm the prayers of my grandmothers. I am the sacrifice of my parents leaving the Bronx and Brooklyn, New York. I am the ever-enduring love, grace, patience, guidance of my Black mother who raised 2 Black boys. I am the love and guidance of my father who still advises me to this day. I am the unbreakable bond of friendship, loyalty, and love that is my best friend and my brother. I come from the love of Black women who have healed me, the Black women in my life, past, present, and future, women like Reese and my Aunt Michelle, who've shown me how to live freer in ways than I ever understood before. I am the 15+ years of friendship, love, intelligence, wisdom, compassion, and support of my amazing wife, who really wanted me to be here today. The thing about community is it is unavoidable. It's everywhere. It's everything we participate with. It's in the environment. It's with the animals. But that's a beautiful thing. I really want you to think about who has helped make you, you. Think about the people that have laid their hands on you, that have helped you be the person that you are today. Think about the intersection of the identities that you all hold. The students here, you're more than just students. You are musicians, you're artists, you're teammates, you're athletes, you are friends, you're cousins, you are sons, daughters, children of the families that you have both chosen and by blood. That is community. And how we build community matters, both in theory and in practice, intimately and deeply. We tend to think of words like social justice and equity as these messianic tasks that are only enhanced by the selfish egos we're taught to carry. It was author Bell Hooks that said, "I'm often struck by the dangerous narcissism fostered by spiritual rhetoric that focuses so much on individual self-improvement and so little to the practice of love within the context of community." You see, community and social justice and equity have to be more than just words, because for many of us, it is a means of survival. Those in Black and brown spaces understand this deeply. Those in queer spaces understand this deeply. Women around the world understand this deeply, that community is essential on this journey of life. And building community has to be the choice that we make, no matter the career paths that we choose. And doing this is going to take a certain amount of introspection and intentionality. It's going to take trust and respect. In terms of introspection, we have to be willing to ask, why do our communities look the way that they do? Be aware of the privileged spaces that you come from. Be aware of the spaces that you're stepping into. Always be willing to ask who is in the room, and more importantly, be willing to ask who is not in the room, because usually those questions go hand in hand. It was easy for me when I was at ESPN to step into a room and see that I was the only Black person in the space. It wasn't until an ex-girlfriend of mine pointed out that those same spaces had little to no women at all.
It was because of her I had to expand my gaze on what I thought equity was. It was because of her I had to be honest about the good old boy system that I was participating with and benefiting from. You see, building community is going to take a certain amount of introspection about the communities, about the systems that we're coerced into participating with, whether this is racism, ageism, sexism, homophobia, or any form of injustice against any kind of people. It's going to take a certain amount of introspection. It's going to take a certain amount of intentionality. It's going to take a certain amount of vulnerability with one another. We live in a society fueled by capitalism that tells us that we live in a hierarchy, a rat race, in which we need to climb over one another to achieve the things that we want and need. I would urge you to dismiss the lie that is the hierarchy and really think about building communal spaces as roundtables, full of empowerment, full of acknowledgement, understanding that everyone who steps into the space brings something of value because they exist. As people with privilege, we must be willing to ask, does my voice need to be the loudest in the room? I was at the University of San Diego in an international negotiations class, and we're in a simulated negotiation in like week 2 of the class. We're split into 2 groups, and after some ideation, I guess just because I have a big mouth, I'm elected to be the spokesperson for my group. I give this long-winded, elegant, eloquent, amazing answer that I would like to include was right. I don't remember what the answer was, but I do like to remember the fact that I felt an immense amount of pride knowing that the other group won't have a rebuttal. I remember my group feeling like we had an immense amount of pride knowing that the other group won't have a rebuttal. Professor Michael Fryer says to the second group, does anybody have a rebuttal for what Aaron said? And a woman named Zoya raises her hand. And she goes, well, Aaron's answer was nice, but we now won't know the other beautiful answers in the room because Aaron has purposely suffocated the space and dominated it with his masculinity. The room went quiet because everyone realized that Zoya had just gutted me like a fish. But Zoya was right. Zoya is right. What does it mean to take a step back? The goal is not to be the first or the loudest in the room. The goal is to use my privilege and my proximity to privilege to amplify the agency of voices in the room that have been screaming for ages, but we have refused to listen to. The goal is to use my privilege and my access to privilege to help dismantle the systems that have prevented people from being here, from having a platform. There's no such thing as a voiceless people. We must be willing to question why those without resources continue to be silenced and wonder how we can use our shared privilege to dismantle those systems while sharing our limited power. And we must be willing to do this while respecting the agency of communities that may not want our help. We need to understand that privilege does not equate to credibility. People know who they are. They understand their situations better than outsiders. It was Dr. Kimberly Thomas McNair at Stanford who said, people understand who they are if only by the condition in which they are treated by the systems they participate with. We have to be willing to say, although that I have a certain amount of privilege, I may not be the most suited person to help lead this conversation or help lead this group of people, but I can use my privilege to amplify the agency of someone who is more qualified. Community is a faithful act. You're choosing to trust the space. You're choosing to say, again, while my voice may be loud and maybe because I do have privilege, maybe I'm not best suited to lead this space. We have to be willing to look at our own privilege, willing to look at our own centerness, and realize that there are other people in this space who may be better suited. That is community. Community is everywhere. This takes time. Community takes time. Building trust takes time. It was that same Professor Michael Fryer that used to remind us it was important to waste time with the right people. In a world that rushes us along, it pays off to sit down and hear the stories of the people in your community. It pays off to hear the humanity and the journeys of people who are different than you. Sure, it worked out for me being there with Alan and getting lucky to help launch a career, but more importantly, it's paid off for me in ways that I've gotten to sit down with communities all over the world who share their stories with me, who share their journeys with me, and show me what a more equitable future can look like every day. The students here, the newer generation, as you have a vaster imagination than any of the previous generations before you, I challenge you to use that imagination in really thinking about how you can build a better, more equitable future. Understand that your voice is needed, and understand that the opportunity to do so doesn't happen after college. It doesn't start in college. The opportunity to build a more equitable space is here right in front of you, here at Cathedral Catholic High School. Be intentional in your decisions. Be accountable to one another and hold each other accountable. Be accountable to one another as students. Be accountable to your fellow classmates. Be accountable to your friends and your family members. Hold each other accountable. May this administration be accountable to you, and may you hold them accountable. And may we understand that through the differences in our gender identities, race, nationalities, the difference in our generational age gaps, that we learn together with and from each other. That together we create a new language that we can understand in more equitable ways. I don't mean this in any cliche way. A diversity in community brings a diversity of ideas and thoughts, which brings a diversity of answers which we would have never achieved any other way. Always be willing to look around and question how our community spaces can and should be more diverse. I come from the church. I'm well versed in church culture, and I speak the language. I lived with two theologians. I know the church language, and one of the questions I've always been taught to ask is, where are the saints? I got my master's degree at the Kroc School at the University of San Diego, a space that lacks diversity, and one of the things that I used to ask and still ask is, where are the saints? Where are the black and brown saints? Where are the queer saints? Where are the women saints? Here in San Diego on Kumeyaay land, where are the native and indigenous saints? The new generation, I hope you are always willing to ask of the spaces that you're in, where are the saints? May the voices of black and brown communities be uplifted. May the voices of queer and trans communities be uplifted. May the voices of communities with those that are disabled be uplifted. May our communities look diverse, not just in theory, but in actuality as well. I want to remind you, I am not self-made. Luckily, none of us are. Thank you.